all I wanted to do was chemistry. I never really considered what other opportunities there might be at Lilly.
A chemist at heart, John Lechleiter loved his years working in the lab. But there were bigger things for him on the horizon, like moving up the ladder to the top spot at one of the biggest pharmaceutical operations in the world, Indianapolis-based Eli Lilly Company, calling the shots as CEO, just as expiring patents and the Great Recession were taking hold in 2008.
I think sometimes strategy gets more attention than it should. It's really about getting a group of people aligned behind a particular set of goals and enabling them to really make it happen. And that's what the Lilly workforce did.
John Lechleiter, born in the Bluegrass State, now a true blue Hoosier. Get to know the man who ran Lilly for 8 years and is now spearheading Indiana's move to become a Midwest giant in the tech and health sciences space. John Lechleiter, my guest this week on the Business and Beyond podcast. Hello and welcome to the Business and Beyond podcast, presented by PNC. I'm Gary Dick. Well, not many people can claim to have led Eli Lilly Company. John Lechleiter, one of the few. He served as CEO for more than 8 years at Lilly, from April 2008 to December 2016, a rough period for the company and the U.S. economy. John grew up across the Ohio River from Indiana in Louisville.
Take me back to Louisville.
The eldest of 9, Dad John H. Lechleiter owned a Ford dealership, which is still in business today.
This holiday, Byerly Ford wants to help you shop smart. Buy any new Ford vehicle and get thousands in holiday bonus cash.
Lechleiter learned a lot of business lessons growing up, the son of an automobile dealer. He shares those and much more insight on this week's edition of the Business and Beyond podcast. And bear with us for these first few minutes of the podcast as we had some audio issues that we got cleared up and continued with our conversation with John Lechleiter. And I'm very pleased to be joined on the podcast this week by former Eli Lilly Company Chairman, CEO, John Lechleiter. John, how are you?
I'm doing great, Gary. How are you?
I'm really good, and again, thrilled we can have this conversation. It's been a while. I think the last time the two of us got together, we were on the golf course at a golf outing, and you were striping the ball right down the middle.
Well, I can still do that on occasion. I really ought to be better, given that I've got a little more time to play now, though.
Yeah. What are you doing? I mean, you're quote unquote retired, but I know you're keeping busy and doing things. What have you been up to?
Well, Sarah and I are still active in the community here. We've been involved in a number of kind of not-for-profit endeavors. I was honored to be asked to join the board of the Lilly Endowment shortly after I retired. So I'm involved in that, involved on the Indiana Economic Development Corporation as a board member, and I've been serving on the board of Indiana Biosciences Research Institute, or IBRI, for the past several years as well. So we're keeping about as busy as we want to be, given we got these 9 grandchildren that occupy a lot of our time too.
Wow, 9 grandchildren. I can speak from experience. I don't have 9. We've got 3. But what's being a grandpa like?
Well, it's wonderful. You know, it's like they say, you have all the joys of parenthood, and then you give them back to their parents. But we're really blessed. Our 3 kids each have 3, and they're all in a tight age range from age 4 to age 9. So these 9 cousins have all grown up together and enjoy being with one another, which makes it all the more rewarding. You know.
You mentioned some board work you're doing. I know in the past. Previously, you were on some really big boards, Ford and I think Nike. And are you still on those boards, or do you step away from that?
No, I'm not. I retired from the Lilly board as the board chair in May of 17. And I didn't really know at that point how much longer I wanted to stay involved in other corporate boards. And
It turns out I've been probably less and less involved in business, Gary, since I retired, and not more and more involved. And I told the Nike folks and the Ford people, I'm probably about as smart as the last guy that read the Wall Street Journal. When I come into your board meeting, so I'd like to step down and give you a chance to put somebody else on there who can bring new ideas. But in each case, I felt like I contributed. They're great companies, but it's always time to move on.
Hey, I've got to ask you, because the Nike board, that had to be a kind of a cool thing. What was that like, being on the Nike board? Kind of a cool company. You got to interact, I assume, with Phil Knight and some of that kind of stuff.
I did. I would usually sit next to Phil. He's now emeritus on the board, and his son actually joined the Nike board half a dozen or 8 years ago. He's a tremendous guy, a real visionary. I was impressed. Nike is a athletic wear and sports oriented company, obviously, but I was impressed with the discipline that they put around that business and their unbelievable and incredible insights into the consumer that they serve. So it was for me a real eye opener and a fun experience too.
Hey, Johnson, we'll backtrack a little bit, but what's been keeping you busy in so-called retirement?
Well, Gary, I probably not as busy certainly as I was when I was working, but I'm involved in a few not-for-profits in the community. My wife and I are still doing a number of things in that sphere. I was fortunate to be asked to join the Lilly Endowment board a few years ago, on the Indiana Biosciences Research Institute board, where I'm sitting out here today, and also on the Indiana Economic Development Corporation board. So we're staying in Indiana, and we're trying to remain plugged in here and still maybe have a little leisure time for things like grandchildren, et cetera.
Yeah, I love it. So you've got 9 grandbabies, right?
We do, ages 4 through 9. So they're
Wow.
bunched together, and the cousins have a lot of fun when they get together.
That's neat. What I thought was great too, John, certainly I took note of it, was after you retired from Lilly, you and Sarah decided to stay here in Indianapolis, right? Still living here in Indy. Obviously a conscious decision to stay here and not move to the beach or the mountains somewhere.
Well, we built a home on some property in Brown County that we've owned for many years. So we sometimes toggle back and forth, but we love this community. 2 of our 3 kids are still here. And, I felt like at the time I retired, this is where we want to be and where our connections are and where we can still, hopefully help in certain ways.
Yeah. When you were the CEO and leading Eli Lilly and Company, I always recognized the fact that you felt, at least I thought you felt an affinity and, a real need to support Indianapolis as a city, as a region, and also in the life sciences as well. There was a real connection there that you felt was important. Is that an accurate description?
It is. I think that, our founders, the Lilly family, I think, without saying so directly, believe that a healthy, strong community helped make Lilly a healthy, strong company, and vice versa. I mean, then as now, we're one of the biggest and certainly most influential employers in the region, and the company has to hire talented people from all over the world. We want them to come to a community that is inviting, that is welcoming, that has the kinds of things that would, enable them to build a good life here and enjoy, all the things that we have to offer in this region. So, yeah, we're definitely committed to that, and also to helping further the life sciences here in central Indiana. Again, I think for a company like Lilly, for example, as the life science community here blossoms, to me, all boats rise.
As you look at the Indiana Biosciences Research Institute, you're on the board there. It's that 16 tech development, which was talked about through multiple mayoral administrations, talked about for a long time. It's now happening. It's now coming to life. And a lot of people are excited about that. As you look at the IBRI and the assets, what things are there, Talk about what impresses you about that and what the potential, in your view, truly is for Indianapolis.
Well, I'll start by saying I think 16 Tech is one of the most exciting things to happen in the city in a long time. And this is only the beginning. And I would encourage anyone listening to the podcast, if you haven't been out to 16 Tech, come over and give it a look. It's gonna be transformed in coming years. And I think it's going to be an even more important focal point for technology, for entrepreneurship, for startups. IBRI is very pleased today to be the anchor tenant in what's called Building 1, which is the first real sort of lab composite office space built out here at 16 Tech. And I couldn't be happier with the progress that IBRI has made as it approaches its 10th anniversary. Today we have 60 or so scientists and support staff working here. We're supporting, Gary, 13 startups here in this building, biotech, life science startups, two of which just recently came on board. So we really want 16 Tech and IBRI to become magnets and catalysts for the growth of the life sciences here in central Indiana. And it's really, really exciting to have a place now where that can happen.
Yeah, and people talk about 16 Tech really as being, it's about innovation and entrepreneurship and technology, all those kinds of things. But it really boils down to talent. And it's a real talent play for the city and the region to attract and keep talent here. In your view, how will that happen?
Well, I think it's going to happen in a number of ways. I think that already there are larger companies, including Lilly, that are putting satellite operations here so that the Lilly scientists, for example, can mix and mingle with others who are here running startups or who have different ideas, come from different sort of fields of science. So, it's that mixture of interest and skills and enthusiasm really out here that I think makes this place so special. But, another thing I think that's going to be interesting, this recent announcement about IUPUI and the transformation to IU Indianapolis and Purdue University. This I think is very exciting and opens up some additional possibilities for collaboration with as the two institutions now pursue their growth strategies in Indianapolis. So I think it's a great place for partnerships to build, and obviously it's been and is a great place for businesses to start up.
As you reflect back on your time at Eli Lilly and Company, I think you spent nearly 40 years, 37 years, I think, at Lilly. 8 years as CEO. Obviously, Lilly was a very special place for you. What, in your view, what makes Lilly a special place?
I think it's the culture and the people. I came to interview at Lilly only a year after Eli Lilly passed away in 1977. This would be the grandson of our founder. And I think the imprint that the Lilly family made on the company is still very much felt there. Their emphasis on excellence, on integrity, and on people really still resonates, not just as words in the lobby, but as the way the company lives out its mission day to day. So it's still a fantastic place, but there are lots of pharma companies. I think Lilly is unique in the way that it goes about its business and the caliber of the people who work there.
Yeah, you went to Lilly right after grad school?
Yes.
You got there and that started you on your path, right?
I did. I joined as a chemist in 1979 and worked in the lab a few years. And, Lilly I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky, and this was a chance to kind of get back to the area. I consider myself extremely lucky to have landed in a place like Lilly. Now that I look back on it, I don't think I recognized when I joined just what a unique and special place it was, but it gave me no reason to want to leave after 37 years.
Yeah, and you love chemistry, right? You wanted to be a chemist. Was there a vision or a thought that you might hit that management track at some point, or did you just want to be a chemist?
Gary, I don't think anybody believes this, but when I joined Lilly, I needed a job. I mean, my wife and I, Sarah and I, had our son Dan was 6 months old, and I needed a job. We didn't have two dimes to rub together, and I was only interested in doing chemistry. I thought I was pretty good at it. I had no further ambitions. In fact, I didn't even know what was what could be available down the road. And so a few years later, when I had a chance to take a management position and leave the lab, I think it took me months, as I recall, to think about that. Did I really want to do that? And you knew you really couldn't return once you left. But I'm glad I made the decision that I did. And one door opened, as one door shut, another door opened, and then the rest is history, I guess.
Were there moments or people? I'm sure there were people, but that really were instrumental along the way, because that's quite a ride to get to the top spot. What was talk about that journey?
Well, there were, and we I don't think in 1979 the term mentor was used much. Today we have more formal mentoring relationships, but as I look back, Gary, I can pick a half dozen people from within the company who served that function for me and who gave me good advice and sort of guided me along the way. I mean, people used to say, well, where'd you get your MBA from? And I said, well, I don't really have an MBA except from the School of Hard Knocks. And, how did I learn business? Well, I learned business because a few people took me under their wing and said, here's how this works. And Lilly's full of that still today. I think Lilly, many people there who help others really kind of move up that ladder as people help me.
Well, you certainly learned it very well, because you led the company through one of its certainly toughest, most challenging period ever. That period with the loss of the patent expiration on 4 blockbuster drugs, billions of dollars in revenue. As you reflect back on that, how daunting a challenge was that, and how did it test your leadership?
Well, it definitely tested my leadership. I think it looks and sounds more daunting now in retrospect, believe it or not, because as we went along, although we knew that these things were inevitably going to expire, we were going to inevitably lose that revenue. I remember being on your show many times, and we were facing one or other of these things. But I think most of my effort and most of our team's effort was really around, okay, how do we replace these drugs? In other words, how do we resume growth once we plateau after these patents expire? And that involved investing more in R&D. And of course, that was you could say a tough thing to do, given that our earnings and our revenues were declining. But I think every year, right up until 2014, we actually invested more, in R&D, both as a percentage and in absolute dollars, than we did in the previous year. So we kept our foot on the gas, and I think that investment in R&D is paying off today.
Yeah, and it was, but you had to make some very tough decisions, because I remember there were several thousand. There was 5,000 cuts that had to be made in terms of jobs and personnel. Anytime that kind of thing comes up for most CEOs is very difficult. What was that process like for you personally? Because I'm sure you knew a number of the people who were impacted.
It was a very difficult thing to do. I think we did it. If there's a right way to do that, I think we did it. We offered some number of those folks opportunity to take other positions in the company. Some were able to retire. Others got packages and went on and did other things. And, I commented to someone along the way that not once did I get a nasty gram or any kind of a negative reaction, that came directly to me through that whole process. And it's not that was easy for anybody, but I'm proud of the way the company went about that, and proud of the individuals who worked through that, and I think for the most part landed on their feet despite the disruption.
Was there ever, from a leadership standpoint, as you think back on it, was there ever a time, because again, those were very challenging times for the company, was there ever a time when you doubted the path you were taking, you doubted yourself, or those kinds of thoughts creep in as you think back on it?
Well, not in a serious way. There were moments when I got discouraged. And one of those came when we had one of our Alzheimer's drugs fail. And I think in that same week, we had an adverse ruling on one of our patents. And there was a third thing that I can't recall. And I felt pretty beat up. Fortunately, my wonderful wife picked me up by the collar and said, well, if you think there's a brighter future ahead, you need to tell your side of the story. And we published a full page kind of letter in the Star and the IBJ and the Recorder. And and basically that gave me just writing that gave me a shot in the arm, and I felt, more reassured. We work our way through these challenges. So it wasn't an easy road, but I don't think I ever really had a doubt that things would work the way they did. We had great scientists, Gary. We had great business partners. We had a legacy of 135 years of innovation. And, I think that's showing up again today. I think the company today is the largest market cap in pharma, with the exception of J&J, and they're going to split off their consumer division. So I expect within the year, if things hold up, Lilly will be the largest market cap pharma company in the world. That's saying something. Yeah.
You've accomplished a number of things during your time at Lilly. Is managing the company through that time, do you think that will be viewed by others as your legacy?
Well, I think so. That was my job. I remember, reading the media reports when my appointment was announced in 2007 that these patent expirations loomed. And I remember Sarah said to me at the time, she said, "Couldn't you have just waited a while for this stuff to pass?" And I said, "No, this is my job. I grew up in R&D. We needed productive R&D to get us out of this challenge." I said, "I think I'm the right guy for that." And I think Dave Ricks is the perfect guy right now to really drive the growth that they're seeing.
We'll have much more with John Lechleiter when we return on the Business and Beyond podcast. Growing up in Louisville, we got to Indianapolis, and much more when the Business and Beyond podcast returns.
This is Alex Brown. Get caught up on the state's top business news every business day with Inside Indiana Business Radio on demand. This twice-daily podcast features our statewide Inside Indiana Business Radio reports with additional bonus content that you can listen to anytime, anywhere. You can listen now on the podcast page at InsideIndianaBusiness.com or subscribe for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC. My guest this week, former Eli Lilly Company CEO, John Lechleiter. And John, let's look back to the early days. So you grew up not far from Indianapolis, just down I-65 in Louisville, right? And you came from a big family. You were the eldest of 9 children.
Yes, sir.
What was that like? That had to be, never a dull moment in the Lechleiter household.
Oh, there was never a dull moment. We had not just 11 of us in the house. We had 3-bedroom homes.
Oh,
the boys, myself, and my 4 brothers were all upstairs in a finished attic, and we fought it out up there every day. And my twin sisters, who were the youngest, slept in my parents' bedroom until they were 7 or 8, and my dad added a bedroom on to the back of the house. So I had a wonderful upbringing in Louisville. It's a wonderful city. We still go back down there. Most of my siblings are somewhere in that area. So we're all still real close.
Yeah. And your dad was a Ford dealer, right?
He was. Yeah. My grandfather, my mother's father, started a Ford dealership in Louisville right after World War II. And my father and 2 of his brothers-in-law, 2 of my mother's sisters' husbands, ran that dealership till he retired in the 80s. Yeah.
Running that business, did that kind of that interest in business or business savvy maybe rub off from the car dealership days?
It did. I think the thing that was the most abiding memory of that period is how cyclical that business was. And in the 70s, when the oil shock hit and the Japanese automakers really made their move, the domestic automobile business was really on its heels.
That was tough. Yeah.
It was tough. And, my dad had at that point still 6 or 7 of us to put through college. And I remember, he was quite anxious about that. And I remember thinking, things just don't go in a straight line. There are ups and downs. And whether it's the economy or the fortunes of a given business, when times are good, you've got to say to yourself, maybe they won't be good forever. And when times are bad, you've got to say to yourself, this too shall pass, and we'll get back to a better situation. I think I learned that from the automobile business.
I know you had an interest in sports. Where did the interest in science? Because obviously you had a passion for science. Where did that come from?
That's a good question. I think I was always interested in science for reasons that I can't quite fathom, but I had two outstanding teachers in high school. I went to St. Xavier High School in Louisville, and I had two Xaverian brothers, one who taught me chemistry and one who taught me physics. And they really got me interested in science, and then went on to college. And you have a couple of other influential teachers, and I had some summer intern experiences at Oak Ridge Labs and later at University of Minnesota. And, it's sort of one step after another. And I found that chemistry and organic chemistry is really what I liked, and that's what I pursued.
Did you went to Xavier in Cincinnati for undergrad? Did you think about other places, or what kind of tilted the decision to Xavier?
Well, I got a full scholarship, and I looked behind me and saw 8 others that needed to be educated. My dad had gone to Xavier, and he was a Xavier grad from back just after the war, and so I knew a little bit about it. And the Jesuits and Jesuit education appealed to me. It was a good choice for me.
And then on to Harvard, right?
Right. Yes. Yeah. I got my PhD at Harvard in organic chemistry, and again, a wonderful experience, and rubbing shoulders with faculty that at that time included a couple of Nobel laureates, and with others to follow. So that was a great experience, and served as kind of the basis for all that followed.
Yeah. What as you got out and began looking, landed at Lilly, of course. But were there other sectors of the economy you looked at? Was the pharma business a natural for you, or what was that decision making process like? Well,
I think for individuals who studied chemistry and the type of chemistry or organic synthesis, it was either a university faculty position or the pharma industry. I mean, that's where the most interesting science was being done. So I interviewed at several of the major pharma companies and picked Lilly. I liked the people that I met there. I liked the location back closer to our family. And as I said, it was a good choice.
Yeah. And I think I read, John, that you really never had necessarily formal mentors, but in terms of people you admired, I think I read Churchill. You're a fan of Churchill. Why so?
Well, his sense of humor sort of has me at hello, but I think it was his ability to persevere and to stay constant to his principles, to bring people along in difficult and challenging times. There's just something about that appealed to me, way back when, but became much more relevant actually, during some of the challenges we faced at Lilly.
Sure. As you look, and I know, I'm sure you're asked from time to time, probably a lot of times, from younger executives or people getting into the business world, very much a different world today with technology, the speed of business, things like social media and all the nuances that exist in the business world today. Advice that you pass along or would pass along to those people graduating from college, getting out of graduate school and entering the business world, what would it be?
Well, I think, regardless of the pervasive nature of technology, succeeding in business is still very much about being able to work effectively with others, to communicate effectively in words, in both, the spoken word and the written word, and being able to think, I'll say strategically, but to be able to synthesize information and form conclusions and put strategies in place. These are fundamentals. I think that you can be as proficient in some technical field as you want to be, and so much of that's going to be obsolete in 2 or 3 or 4 years. You're going to have to keep learning that. But these skills that I talked about earlier are kind of foundational. And I don't think that's changed. That's changed a lot.
Final question for you, John, as you look, obviously very connected and helping Indianapolis go to that next level. Indianapolis, like many cities, have faced challenges in recent years and coming out of the pandemic. As you look at the future here for Indianapolis, 16 Tech would be a good example, I think, of something that it bodes well for the future. But how do you look at the future and important things maybe that need to happen here for Indianapolis to remain and continue to be competitive for talent and those types of things going forward?
Well, I'm actually very optimistic about our future. There's always a hiccup or two along the way. I hope that we can maintain the community spirit and community mindedness that has characterized leadership at all levels within Indianapolis ever since we've been here. It's remarkable how well this city, the individuals in this city work together across, lines, across political lines, across, economic lines. That's got to continue. I think that it's important that we build a strong economic base. I think the life sciences are an important part of that. This is one reason why IBRI is here, to help foster and develop the life sciences, whether that's within our academic institutions or within the business community. I also think, Gary, frankly, we've got to do everything we can to improve our K-12 education system. And, Sarah and I have directed a lot of our philanthropy toward that end because, we've got to be concerned about everybody in the community having an opportunity to get a quality education and to be prepared to pursue careers like ones at Lilly or Salesforce or what have you. These are the important jobs in the future, and we've got to have the talent base there in addition to a livable, likable city to attract people and keep people. But I'm an optimist, and I think that 16 Tech, where I'm sitting here today, is evidence of a forward-thinking mentality that I hope we can build on. I think the recent announcement about IUPUI, as I've come to understand it, I think that can unleash a tremendous growth within both of the new institutions, or the two institutions that emerge out of that. So that's going to be exciting to see as well.
John Lechleiter, has been a real treat to catch up with you on the podcast. Thank you. And thank you for all you continue to do for Indianapolis as well, and hope to see you soon.
Thanks, Gary.
All right. And thank you for joining us on this edition of the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC. It's a weekly conversation with achievers in business, sports, entertainment, and beyond. You can catch all of our episodes and get Indiana business news 24/7 at InsideIndianaBusiness.com. I'm Gary Dick. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.